#111# to activate now. Airtel Tigo. Life is simple.
Welcome to The Point of View. This is your favorite current affairs show on television here in Ghana. We usually pick the right guests, ask them relevant questions on issues that matter to you. It's an interactive show, so you can get in touch with us. If you're watching on television, you can simply send us a WhatsApp message. If you're watching on any of the social media platforms, you can also comment on the stream. And today is day 2 of the National Voter Registration Exercise, and we're going to look at it from 3 angles. And when we come back, I'll tell you who will be interviewing. Stay with us. Welcome back. So we are sponsored by Airtel Tigo and Lydia. We'll be telling more about those later during the show. But registration has started in earnest in various parts of the country as the EC oversees a process which tries to register many Ghanaians, up to 15 million, ahead of the December 7 poll. We'll be speaking to the Deputy General Secretary of the NDC, the Director of Elections of the MPP, and a former senior member of the EC, who's now the coordinator of the Coalition of Domestic Election Observers, to tell us what they make of the process. But let me just give you a quick overview of what's been happening at some of the centers. I'll take you to Korle Bu first, where Pella Kanyofori found that up to 20 of the people who turned up to register showed symptoms of COVID-19.
People away because their temperature was too high.
So our normal temperatures are usually range between 36.5 to 37.5. So anything above 37.5 is termed a high temperature. But today as we came, we had up till 39.3, 39.9, and these people even have other symptoms like cough, headache. Initially when you start asking the question, some are very smart, they try to maneuver their way, but as you continue investigating, you realize they have other symptoms. They have headaches, they have the cough, they have the cold. So we are picking very high temperatures today. We've had over 20 people. Yes.
So for those you isolated, were they allowed to register, go through the registration process?
Yes. After some time, they were allowed to. When we spoke to our bosses, they were attended to. Some, after an hour or so, you realize their temperatures dropped. So we gave them the opportunity. There was one particular man that his temperature was so high, even with time, it was rather increasing. But we still gave him the opportunity. He just had to distance himself a little. So for him, the team has taken it up and they are going to follow up on him, especially for him, they are going to take it up.
So that was Pella Kanyofori's report from Korle Bu. We'll take you to other parts of the country, but let me tell you who I have. I have in studio the Deputy General Secretary of the National Democratic Congress, Peter Boamo Tokono. Peter, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bernard, for having me.
Great to have you. I also have via Zoom the Director of Elections of the New Patriotic Party, Evans Nimaku. Evans, good evening. Welcome to The Point of View. Okay. I can see your lips moving. I can't hear any sound, so you probably want to put on your sound, Evans. Okay.
Thank you, Bernard, and good evening. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Great. And I also have the National Coordinator of Kudio, a man who used to work at the EC. Now he's doing civil society work, Albert Ahin. Good evening, sir. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, my brother, and good evening to your listeners as well.
Great. Let me start with the man in the studio. Peter, what has been your overview of 2 days of registration so far?
Well, Bernard, first of all, let me say that the people of this country have shown so much resilience in these 2 days of the registration. But essentially, the process has been generally unsatisfactory. And it's rightly so, because we expected that it would be unsatisfactory because of the ill preparedness of the Electoral Commission. From the day one, we knew that we were going to go into this crisis. As we speak, according to the plan of the Electoral Commission, we were supposed to have about 6,700 centers to start with. Now we are doing some little over 3,300. So that tells you that it will have its own inherent, challenges. The equipment, those who are using it for the first time. They have not been exposed to the system. So there would be a lot of challenges with data entry and even the output. We have picked reports, widespread reports of, system malfunction and network challenges, which, is making it very difficult for some areas to meet the numbers. We'll come to the numbers later, but essentially the process has been very slow and predictably so, because, about 30 million of eligible voters, may have to go through the vouching process. And the vouching process is a very slow one, which delays the turnout time for one to go through the process.
So are you saying that of the expected 15 million voters, only 2 million will go through with the passport and the NIA card, for which 13 million have to do the vouching process?
Well, yes, I'm curious to know where you got the 15 million.
That's what we have been told.
Yes,
about 15 million
to vote. Ghana Statistical Service, we wrote to them officially, and they gave us some data, and the data showed that those who are eligible to vote this year some 17.75 million. Yes, 17.75.
So 17 million.
Yes, and the estimates show that those who have the Ghana card, who may be 18 and above, may just hover a little around 5 million, and beyond. So if you take that one out, you are having close to about 13 million people who would have to go through this vouching for a process. That is more than 2/3.
But we are told about 2 million have passports.
But the passports, you see, passports is a travel document. Anybody who goes for passports ostensibly goes for it to travel outside the country. So majority of those 2 million people are outside the country. The few that are in the country that holds the passport, they use this as a source document for the Ghana card. So ostensibly, those who are having passports, most of them may be having the Ghana card. You understand? So when you do the estimations carefully, you cannot go beyond 5.5 million of people holding those cards. So you are in for trouble for starters. You are going to have a very slow-paced registration process. And that is what we are seeing. Indeed, if you look at the average numbers that we are getting from the polling stations, it numbers a little below 100, per day. So it means that if you are going to stay in the polling station for 6 days, you are having 600, voters per polling station. But that is not the case, in previous times. When we created all these polling stations, we capped them. We discussed at IPAC and we said, look, the number of people in every polling station is growing. So let's create more polling stations and cap it at 800. So averagely, all polling stations are supposed to have a little around 800, voters. So you are saying that they should stay 6 days. Averagely, they are registering 100. Most of the centers that we have recorded so far, they actually registered below 100. And the reason is obvious. Some of them I have mentioned, the system malfunctions, the printing error, and so on and so forth. You have seen some of the ID cards. The date of birth, some are 2002, some are 1732, and so on and so forth. Some of the ID cards come without ID numbers. And what identifies a voter is the ID number, the voter ID number. We have seen several cards that have been printed without a voter ID number. And Bernard, the most dangerous part of all the malfunctions, of all the irregularities that are happening in this process is the coding of the serial numbers, the ID numbers, which actually identifies every single individual. In previous times, when you look at the ID number, it's about some 12 digits or some 10 digits. I don't really remember. But each number represents something. The last 2 numbers or the last 3 numbers actually represents your order of appearance at the registration center. And that is what has been the case in every single registration exercise that we have done. Bernard, what we are seeing across the country is that the numbers that are being given to the registered voters, are not in order. So, for example, you have 30 people who have registered in a particular order, but one is maybe 17, one is 79, one is 2, one is, in a very haphazard manner. You understand? We have raised this concern very strongly to the Electoral Commission, and they actually admitted that it was strange and that they were going to speak to their IT officers or the software developers and get back to us. when they came back to us, they said, oh, they just didn't want anybody to predict the serial number, so it is automatically generated. But it cannot be the case.
Okay.
It creates room and opportunity for people to fill in the gaps. For example, Bernard, if you are 1 and I am 25, from 2 to 24 is available for filling.
Okay, we'll pause there. Let me take the initial comment of the Director of Elections of the MPP, Evans. Evans, thanks for joining again. So what have been your initial comments or observations about the process?
Well, thank you very much. Let me use this opportunity to greet your viewers across the world. What I would say to start with is that this is a 6-day phase 1 program to get people registered in the cluster. I think day 1, day 2, what we've seen so far is encouraging. However, I'm not too surprised about the position of Mr. Peter Boamo Otukuno. This is the program they never supported. I'm surprised that as of now, I'm checking from our database, we are having almost 520,000 people for day 1 and 2, and we are still collating from the registration centers. I'm surprised that, this will be his initial comment. A program that is 38 days and you use only 2 days to create problems. I'm not surprised. But what we are picking is that, yes, in some few places, the machine didn't work, and we've been told that they have backup to replace them. So wherever there were challenges, the EC is working to fix the problem. And for us, our agents are everywhere where registrations are ongoing, and we expect that they report back to us. We will still wait and see how the phase 1 will go, and then we'll come out with our position. But we think that this is the process that has started very well. This issue of having about 800 people per polling station. Bernard, going into the 2016 elections, we used to have 26,992 polling stations. As we speak now, the EC has increased the polling station numbers to 33,367. I think post-registration, we'll see how the population per polling station play out. But Mr. Otukuno's arrangement discussion with Statistical Service, 17 million people are eligible to register and all that. Yes, the law allows that Ghanaians of 18 years and above have the opportunity to register, but you cannot force it. So yes, it's a projection. Let's see how it turns out. I am yet to register. I don't know yet if Mr. Boamo Otukuno has registered as of now, but to begin with a position that is not realistic and begin to condemn the whole program is their normal way of life.
So just a quick question there. The 17 million that is who are eligible, what number is the MPP working with in terms of how many people you expect to register by the end of the 38-day period?
We are not putting down any figure yet. We will see how the first phase will roll out. We know that the EC is projecting between 15 and 16 million. We will see how it goes.
He also said that they expect up to 13 million people to be verified based on the vouching system, because by their estimate, only about 5 million have the passport and the NIA card. Are those the same assumptions you are working with?
Well, I can only take you back to the last limited registration exercise that was conducted by the Electoral Commission. And in that limited registration, as many as 95% of the 1.2 who got registered had their registration being guaranteed for. At the moment, under CI 126, either you have your NIA card or you use your passport. And we anticipate that, yes, there will be some people who wouldn't have these requirements and therefore will need a guarantor. So, yes, I anticipate that we will need more people also to go through this arrangement. So nobody is going to be disenfranchised. On our part, as a party, we are making arrangement that individuals who do not have this will be able to have their registration facilitated for them to be registered.
Okay, thank you for now. Let me turn my attention to Mr. Ayin, just to get a sense of what Kodio thinks. Mr. Ayin, thank you for staying with us. What has been Kodio's initial observations over the past couple of days with the exercise?
Yesterday, we said we were not happy with the protocols of the COVID. But I can say that as of today, our people are reporting that it has improved tremendously. Places where there were no washing of hands and people who were not observing the 1 meter distance have all now, come into line. And I think we should thank the police and the registration officials who cooperated to make this possible. Some of us were scared the way, the centers were running, but I think today it was a little bit fine. We, Kodeo, have always been looking at the rules and regulations governing the registration. For example, we go to find out whether the EC staff are competent and they are handling everything properly. And we can conclude that the staff are competent so far in using the machines. With regards to the performance of the devices, the DVDs, a few of them had to be attended to in the course of the registration. Some were calling it the laptops were freezing. But by and large, I would say about 92% of the machines that were in use at the places where we visited are working very, very well. We hope and pray that this will continue so that the exercise will end up being very smooth. The turnout, as usual, has been good. All centers that our people reported on have a very serious turnout. People sometimes come in as early as 4 a.m., 3 a.m. to join the queue. So it's been very nice. But there's one thing that I would want to draw the attention of the EC so they can have a look at it. The staff that are manning the centers, it's not in all centers that they have their full complement. In some centers, you have 6 officials. Others, you may have 5. And the rest had fewer personnel. What we are trying to say is that when you have fewer personnel manning these centers, it doesn't speed up the process. So they should take a look at this, listen to this one, and maybe find out whether in all the centers they have their full complement of staff that are working, because that will speed up the process. As regards the ID cards, majority of the applicants came to the centers with valid ID cards. A lot of them had the NIA cards, a few had the passports, and just a small number of people reported actually vouched or went in for the guarantee system. So I think that's a good thing to see. Only few people happen to be guaranteed for. We hope that this might continue so that we wouldn't have many people being guaranteed for, so that it will generate a lot of problems. There's one other thing that my people drew our attention to, and that is the writing of names of people who go through the registration. I hear when the chairman of the EC was talking the other day, she said to enhance transparency, they were even going to allow the party agents to be writing names of people who finish with the registration. I personally believe that
Hello? Yeah, you personally believe what? We seem to have lost Mr. Ahin there. We will bring him back as soon as we...
I believe that...
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm back now.
Yeah, you are back now. Go ahead.
Hello?
You are on.
Okay, what I'm saying is that at the end of the day, when the registration is over, there's a printout of those who have registered for the day. And this is given to the parties or their agents. The because in Akachi North, for example, when the part agents were demanding to see the ID cards of the people who had registered, it nearly ended up in a brawl between the NDC and the MPP MPs who were around. So I think the EC should take a second look at that thing, because at the end of the day, it's the same names that are going to come out there. Okay. And what they can do maybe instead is to just maybe mark with a slash or a dash anybody who comes to register. And at the end of the day, they can be counting whatever the strokes they put on their paper, but not necessarily to write their names, and sometimes even collect their phone numbers. I think that is really disturbing.
Fair enough. Thank you for your initial thoughts. Let me come back to the studio, Peter Boama. So you were making a few more points about your observations. If you can just go through. I want to also get a sense of the geographical spread. Are there places where you have specific concerns, or this is a national issue? Yeah,
most of the concerns that I've raised are reports that come from ostensibly places where the NDC may consider strongholds, and that makes it very worrying. So you realize that the seriousness we have attached to some of the concerns that have come on board is much more than some of the other non-essential issues that are coming up. But let me pick it from where Nanahe ended, allowing parties to write their names. You see, we are in a contest that we do not trust each other. We do not trust the Electoral Commission. We do not trust ourselves. We think that every measure that will allow for transparency is very key. And it is very good that, we get the agents to write their names, even though the printout comes. Because when you write the names and you get the printouts, then you have a template to check and cross-check and see whether what you are having is exactly what is coming out. I have made mention of the issue about the serial numbers, which is jumping from 20 to 70 and so on and so forth. And people are getting worried. People are even raising concerns that, the spaces that are being left could be filled, elsewhere. So these are things that, would help enhance the integrity of the process. But quickly, just by way of straightening out some of the things that my fellow Vanda, Ivan Sinimakon, made on the population at the various registration centers. Indeed, if he has some pen, he can write it down. 2016, our number of polling stations was not 23,000.
No, 26,992.
No, it was actually 29,000. In 2016. He may probably be referring to 2012, but it was 29,000, at the time. And what we did with the population at the various polling stations was to cap it at 800. Some were 850, some were 880, some will move to 700, depending on the population in those areas. So that is one point that we are making, that if you are going to have 6 days and you are estimating just some 100 and below, most of the areas in our stronghold, they actually registered between 70 and 80. They were not able to meet the 100 mark, and that makes it very scary. If you look at the numbers that are coming from Ashanti region, it appears that the machines in Ashanti region may be super efficient, or perhaps maybe the workforce are super efficient, because averagely they are hovering around 120, 110, 120. So these are things that we must look at very carefully. Hence, it generates that form of suspicion which undermines the integrity of the process. And we have raised these concerns with the Electoral Commission as well. We feel worried that most of our areas, the machines were malfunctioning. Today it's been a bit better, than yesterday. But still, there is a need for us to look at the functionality of the equipment and so on and so forth. Then Bernard, he made mention of limited registration last year. Do you know that limited registrations are meant for only those who are turning 18 years, who obviously do not have any form of ID? So 90% of them will obviously come with guarantee process. But there again, let's look at the number of weeks that we did. We registered the 1.2 million people. We did almost 4 weeks, 3 weeks, and some additional days were added. And we registered 1.2 million people across the country. All centers were used. All registration centers were used. Yet we registered 1.2 million people. So that tells you something. But there again, even this 1.2 million people, the EC got it wrong in preparing for the registration exercise. You remember, They targeted some 300,000, they moved to 500,000, they went to 700,000, then finally they got 1.2 million. So what we are saying is that you must come to terms with reality, the reality that is confronting you. That helps in planning. You understand? That underscores your efficiency. It underscores how you put your systems in place, and you're meeting your objective. So if you get the foundational assumptions wrong, it means that you have challenges. And what we are saying is that you don't need to be a super mathematician to know that the number of people who have registered for Ghana card beyond 18 years are 5 million or over 5 million. And you don't need to be a professor of mathematics to take it out of 17.5 and know that you are going to deal with 13 million people. As Nanayan said, in actual fact, the first 2 days are just some selected 3,300, registration centers. It could happen by assumption that those areas may have people who have more of the Ghana cards, or those who are registering now are those who have the Ghana cards, because they have to register and get the card so that they can guarantee for others.
Do you know how much time it takes to do the registration using the normal ID versus the vouching process? Is there a sort of estimated length of time it takes for each, which is...
Yes, there is an estimated length of time. If you have the passport or the Ghana card, you could be using between 5 minutes to 8 minutes or 10 minutes, depending on how fast the data entry officer, is. If you do not have that and you are going through the vouching for system, you may be using close to about 20 minutes or more. Also, it depends on who is doing the process for you and all that. So that delays the process, and you have majority of people going through this. I think that first of all, we all want the everybody who qualifies to vote, and that has been our argument from day one. If you've realized, we have embarked on a very aggressive campaign to get people to go and register, because it is their power. And if they are not happy about what we consider as oppression, they are not happy about what we consider as suppression of their will, then the only way that they can, speak out, the only way they can make a very loud statement is to get on the voter roll. So we have encouraged people who do not have to go to the polling station. I recall that yesterday I was saying somewhere that if you think that people will doubt your nationality and you do not have anybody to guarantee for you, you don't have anybody in mind who can guarantee for you, carry your old voter ID card. That is not to show to the electoral commissioner. But when you get there and you show that you have voted before, perhaps somebody will look at you and say, oh, this man is a Ghanaian.
Let's pause it there. I'll take a break. When I come back, I'll take Evans Nimako, and I also have Albertine. Later on, we'll find out the whole brouhaha over the borders and what that means for the process. This is the point of view. We're trying to do a quick overview of 2 days of registration. We're told up to 520,000 have registered. Have you? Send us your comments via the WhatsApp number on the screen. We'll be right back.
Data, extra minutes, and extra unlimited calls. Not just that, even our extra data doesn't expire. Simply dial *111# to bundle now.
Airtel Tigo. Life is simple.
This one is for all the children. If you want to learn mathematics.
I need your siblings to go online instead, but I've used up all our internet data for the month.
Get them Asanka.
This?
No. Asanka is a Wi-Fi device that delivers preloaded educational content for KG, primary, JHS, and SHS without the use of the internet and without the use of other data costs. You can order online and have it delivered to your homes, and also, one Asanka can support up to 20 plus devices.
And you don't need the internet?
No.
Wow.
We succeed with Asanka.
For more information and to purchase, please visit myasanka.com or call 026 57 33 200.
I'm just not ready yet. I want to wait a little before getting pregnant again.
Stop worrying and live free. No matter who you are, Lydia has a contraceptive just for you. Choose the Lydia Daily Contraceptive Pill with iron as your regular contraceptive, or the Lydia IUD, a non-hormonal contraceptive for long-term pregnancy prevention. Contact the Lydia Contact Center and let us help you decide how to live free. With Lydia, you truly decide.
Welcome back. This is the point of view. We're trying to gauge the feeling within the two main political parties over the registration exercise. We also have the CODEO, the Coalition of Domestic Election Observers, advertising with us. We have Peter Bomo Tokuno, Deputy General Secretary, NDC, Evans Nimaku, Director of Elections, MPP. Evans, thanks for staying. So you've had a few more points. Let's get into details. He makes an interesting allegation about how the numbers in Ashanti are about 120 per polling station, and in their strongholds about 70 to 80. I want you to react to that and then also tell me more about your observations after 2 days.
Well, thank you very much. I'm surprised you only mentioned Ashanti region and not be specific about the polling station he is talking of. I mean, looking at K2 North constituency in Water region, one of their strongholds, 14 centers are due for registration. At the end of day 2, as many as 3,161 have gotten registered. In Doje, day 1, 212 people got registered. Day 2, which is today, 155 people got registered. So where comes this issue of machines in Ashanti region are performing better than those in the NDC stronghold? I don't think this is the way to go. I don't think this is the way to go. And I'm saying that for NDC, their position will not change. We heard Mr. Ahin, a system that has been put in place day 1, day 2. Yes, it's possible that some of the officers are not getting their hands on, and soon it will be moving faster than we've experienced in day 1 and 2. Yes, I mean, 2016 elections, we rather had 28,992 polling stations. So, Peter, it's not that I've mixed up the figures. I'm saying that we must be fair to ourselves. Some of the things you are saying, I don't think that is the way to go, okay?
Let me get a quick point. You said in Georgia there was a day 1, 212, day 2, 155.
EP Primary School.
Georgia EP Primary School, okay.
Yeah, K2 North.
Yes, so that's 367 in 2 days. What's the code of the polling station?
The code is VO40101.
Okay, so that's in Georgia. Okay,
and that is what our agent has recorded for us.
Okay,
and I'm saying that for the 14 registration centers in K2 North, they've registered as many as 3,161. And you are telling me that the machines are failing. Well, we have asked the EC, and they say that where the machine fails, they have the capacity to replace. We expect that the process will run smoothly for all those who are eligible to be registered to go through the process. This whole forth and back will not help anybody. The issue of trust. Peter, I don't need to trust you, and you don't need to trust me. It is the system guided by the law that must work. And so this whole issue about, I was surprised about the NCC boss in Eastern region trying to deny party agents from getting database of registrants. I mean, this era, database is very important, and a way to keep track of voters, if willingly they will give out their cards for the details to be taken by the party so we can have interaction with them post-registration. I don't think it is out of place. In any case, the EC will give to parties end of day report, which include people who have gone to that station to register. So it will come to us anyway. But a way to double check what our agents have been doing across the registration centers, that's why we've tasked them to get to us these details. It's not out of place.
You said earlier that for the 2 days we've done 520,000. So if we are doing 6 days for the first round, then the assumption is that we are getting less than 2 million for the first 6 days. If you use that to look at 4 weeks, will we not go below our target? Let me repeat that. You're saying 520,000 have registered for the first 2 days, and we have 6 days. So even if we do better by, say, another 60,000, you're still going to get less than 2 million after 6 days. If you multiply that by the 4 rounds, will that not give us less than even 8 million for the?
No, I don't think it will work out that way, because the number of polling stations vary. Okay. Unless we're saying that we have equal numbers in terms of representation, 33,367, and that you have one sixth of it, but that's not the case. The issue is that there are the polling station numbers are not the same across the phases. They are not. So I wouldn't want us to use that conjecture and give ourselves troubles. That's why it is strange that Mr. Otukono keeps talking about 5 million people who have been giving NIA cards. The NIA itself says that as many as 12 million people have registered and gotten their cards. Yet Mr. Otukono sits on your studio and creating numbers of their own. And I'm surprised about this. I don't think this is the way to go. The fact of the matter is that, yes, the law allows that if you do not have NIA or passport, somebody will have to guarantee for you. There must be a relations. Because I will not vouch for Peter if he doesn't have NIA card or passport. So there must be a relation. And so the law allows that to happen. And we are expecting that people who do not have, and my brother, look at how Mr. Otukono is telling Ghanaians that if you don't have ID card, NIA or passport, go with your previous ID card and show it to the EC or show it to anybody at the station that somebody will then guarantee for you. It's the same way they gave interpretation of Supreme Court ruling, where that was not the case. Why do you want to trace CI 126? Why? How do you stand to benefit from this? Bernard Mona, I heard him say that people should go to registration centers with their old ID card. And the same Mr. Otukono is saying here. Please, the EC has started a program. And for us as New Patriotic Party, we think that the law is working. Let's rather support it, as Mr. Ahin is advising. Look at the comment from Mr. Ahin, that the system has been working well. The only challenge he mentioned is that in some of the registration centers, the ad hoc staff are below the numbers and control becomes an issue. And the machines are working. I mean, these are things you have to be saying, but always trying to create problems that do not exist. It will not help any of them.
All right. Let me come to Mr. Ahin. Mr. Ahin, what are your thoughts on some of the stories we've heard around? People are being bussed. Some of the places, the machines are not working. There are arguments over whether the people who are registering here are supposed to be from here at all. Does your observer mission look into these nitty-gritty details? How is it reported as a whole for you guys?
Them to be looking at for such things. But personally, I have something about busing. I have always said that it's not in every locality that access to the registration center is very easy. You may have somebody traveling about 4 kilometers, 3 kilometers, sometimes even 8 kilometers to a registration center. And so the experience has been that most of the parties sometimes organize and get vehicles to bring these people. My caution here is that when you bus them, don't send them to the registration centers. Don't go to the place like as if you are handing them over. Registration is an individual affair. The law stipulates that you should be there on your own to go and register. So long as somebody picks you in a car or in a truck and drives you straight to the office of the EC or to the registration center, that I think is something that we should not be encouraged. But we know in our part of the world here that sometimes getting to centers becomes a problem. So these politicians or political party members sometimes help by bringing people to come and do it. And I think if you're able to do that, it's okay. But you don't go and hand them over. And that is the busing that we are talking about.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
No, you asked another question. I think I've forgotten about that one.
Yes, I wanted to know the pockets of controversies around people being identified. I mean, we've heard some places in Asawasi there were concerns about sighting of a polling station, and then in other parts of the country there have been a few I won't call them clashes, but pockets of disagreement over issues of whether this person is supposed to register here or register at a different place because it doesn't live there.
Yes, I think that issue can be solved by the EC. You see, most of the time, people out of euphoria, when they see that people have a group that they are registering, they say, oh, I must also go and do it. The EC has drawn a movement plan and has pasted on all these at various registration centers. Some people might not have seen it. Others might not even take the newspapers and read to know where their centers are. So I would suggest further that the EC, having these public address systems on top of their vehicles, can, for example, go to certain communities and at dawn or in the evening, tell the community that this community is supposed to be going to this particular center at this time and at this on this day. Remind them. And the local FM stations can also be employed to be giving these announcements. The problem is that a lot of people don't even care to know where they're supposed to be registering. Even though they know where they registered the last time, they still want to go to places where the action is. So maybe we should take the wind out of their sail by going to them and telling them, by intensifying education, to tell them of the places where they should go and do it. Because others have gone there when in fact they are not supposed to be there.
All right, thank you. Let me take you to Nima, where our Bubi Osei interacted with the election official about the process of the registration and also some concerns around social distancing. This was yesterday. Okay, we'll show you that in a second. So, so what are the key concerns going forward for the EC to address? We've just done 2 days. What do you think needs to change for us to increase the numbers by the end of the first 6 days?
Bernard, before I deal with that, if you permit me, let me quickly clear some erroneous impression. The point I was making with people carrying the voter ID card is not for them to go and say, this is my source document, register me. What I'm saying is that there may be a lot of people, millions of people who will not have family members where they are, and people may not know them around. But when they get to the polling station with a voter ID card, some good citizens will see them and say, oh, this gentleman has voted before. At least it shows that he has some background. Listening to him and looking at him, he's a Ghanaian. Let me guarantee for him. That is the point that we are making, so that people will not see at home and throw, their hands in despair and not get anybody to help them exercise their rights under the Constitution. That's the point that I was making. Then secondly, you see, you cannot lie about data. Data is scientific, it's a fact. You can't go around it. The NIA has given us the number of people that they have registered. They said it's 11 million. They initially issued 7.72 thousand, cards. You understand? They subsequently printed some 2.5 million cards to distribute. You saw what happened with the distribution of the cards. People were having 4 cards, some are having 5 cards, and all are embedded in the 2.5 million that they tried to add. They were not able to even distribute all because people did not even show interest to go for their cards. Now, what we are talking about, the 7,072,000, are just some cards that represent those who are 15 years, 16 years, 17 years, and 18 years and above. Now, when you look at the data in detail, you would realize that by some 2 million people are those who are 15 years, 16 years, and 17 years. So it means that what are left is just a little over 5 million. I made a case about the passport. Bear in mind that the passport, even if you are 1 month, old, you can get a passport. So the 2 million that we are talking about includes those who are from the ages of 1 month to 17 years. So when you do all those extrapolations, in actual fact, those who are holding passports in Ghana who qualify to vote may be a little over 50,000.
What's your reaction to that's fair point? What's your reaction to the Ketu North numbers he put out? I think that puts your argument in doubt because he's shown us that he mentioned the polling station code DO401 Joje EP polling station, day 1 212, day 2 155. You said your strongholds, the number of people are less than 100. Joje is your strongholds, Ketu North. So clearly, there's evidence that that's not correct.
Georgia is just one aspect of it.
And it's a border town. All the places you were making.
No, if I may.
No, Georgia is a border town.
Yeah, if I may. I have not looked at what is given. I don't know the veracity of that data. But what I've seen, the average that we have tracked from Catching North, Doje, Ketu South, Ho, and all those things, we are hovering around some 100, per day, and sometimes less than 100 per day. And from the data that we are having, when you go to Sepasi, for example, police station ABC, the police station A, they were having about 122 people yesterday. They had that is A. They had B about 136. C, they had 163, and it was widespread. I mean, there are so many of them. I did not bring all the data here, but I'm giving you examples, evidence that shows that
but he also the system both of you are mentioning police station. Both of you are mentioning places we don't have the full document, so it's basically everybody just mentioning what he wants.
But you see, we are dealing with averages. In fact, this argument this morning we got our response team to be doing averages of the data that they collected yesterday, and it showed clearly that averagely they were doing some 150 per police station. In fact, this afternoon, that was when it came down to about 120, 130 with what they had gotten, as at the time I was leaving. So the worry is there. What I'm saying is that let's look at the functionality of the equipment. Where the bottlenecks are, let's try and remove the bottlenecks. Then you raise the issue about busing. That is very critical. It has raised issues, at several registration centers. The case whereby you have, parliamentary candidates busing people from other constituencies to come into one constituency and come and register. And a typical example, you are aware, is the Ayawaso West Wagon incident on Legon campus. And this is not the first time. They have been doing this for a very, very long time. That is gerrymandering. That is criminal. You understand? That is criminal. So they go to the nearby constituencies where they think that they have limited strength and they may not be able to win. And they move them to other constituencies. That amounts to gerrymandering, and that is criminal.
But you state that without evidence.
And you see, that is what Nanahin was talking about. He
didn't. He wasn't talking about Ayawaso West Wagon. He was making a general point. You are the one using that to make your point. He didn't say that anybody is busing anybody.
But Bernard, the general point is embedded on some facts, and the facts you know about. And I'm sharing that particular single facts to buttress what he said. And I'm saying that they organize the people, put them in buses, send them to the registration center. Some of them they would have used some stones to queue for them. They just bring them and they want them to take over the stones and go and register. That will certainly create problem. In fact, when you go to the western region, you go to Axim, you go to Domoro, you go to Elembele, that is what they are doing. And this time around in those areas, they are using military support to perpetuate this kind of criminal activity, which I consider as gerrymandering. And I think these are the things that we have to look at. I don't know whether the Kodio have picked this, feedback from the field, but the military are being used to protect these people, to breach the law. And I think that is very unfortunate. Those are things that we must look at, because it undermines the integrity and the credibility of the process. You have seen what is happening in Volta region. We have made enough noise about what is happening in Volta region, even though for now we have not seen.
I was interested in finding out whether that had affected your numbers in the places in the border towns you considered your small goals. You haven't been able to give me any figures. You just made general comments. So I'll take a break. When I come back, I'll take some quick reactions from the other two. We have a lot of comments coming through as well. We're trying to gauge the work of the EC in the past couple of days. Registration. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
COVID-19 has changed the world, but despite the challenges, the spirit of Africanacity is still alive. It's in the tenacity of the men and women keeping us going. It's in the creativity you use to work, teach, and do it all. And it's in the ingenuity of all those who are making a difference. Thank you to everyone still getting things done. Your Africanacity inspires us.
Just not ready yet.
I want to wait a little before getting pregnant again.
Stop worrying and live free. No matter who you are, Lydia has a contraceptive just for you. Choose the Lydia Daily Contraceptive Pill with iron as your regular contraceptive or the Lydia IUD, a non-hormonal contraceptive for long-term pregnancy prevention. Contact the Lydia Contact Center and let us help you decide how to live free. With Lydia, you truly decide.
Welcome back to The Point of View. We're trying to gauge the mood of the two leading political parties and also Kodeo on the registration process so far. Let me take you to Nima for one of the polling stations. Just a quick interaction one of our reporters, Bobi Osei, had with the gentleman who was the polling station sort of coordinator for the EC.
First, we were able to start on time. All the materials were ready on time, so we started on time. But so far, we've registered about 36 members. Yes.
Only 36 people since you started around 7 o'clock?
Yes, please. Only 36 people.
Wow.
Yes.
Which means that you have over hundreds and hundreds of people here. It might take a while.
Yes. I think today being the first day, I think with time we will catch up and the speed will come. Exactly.
One key thing I observe is that a lot of people are sitting together, social distancing not being adhered to. Why is that? Aren't you able to ensure that what the EC boss said is being adhered to?
Exactly. We're doing that, but they are humans. One way or the other, they flout the rules. But we still talk to them. So we've been telling them, but we don't know. But the policeman is here too, so I will talk to him and he make sure they abide by the rules, the social distancing and the other stuff. Yeah.
Okay, now a quick one. You find that only 36 people. It's currently about 10 a.m. plus. That's 3 hours after you start, and you've only registered 36 individuals, which means that you're not. An individual is spending more than 30 minutes or so here.
It's less than 30 minutes. I timed the first person, it took like 25 minutes. So with the printer, but we've got the technician, he's around to...
It's having what?
Problem with the printer, but they've spoken to the technician, he's around. So as I said, it's a new machine, so we'll be having this kind of... So
now you say you've called a technician, so until the technician comes, this machine will not work?
We also try our hands on it till he comes.
Okay.
So that was Bobi Osei. Let me go to Evans Nimako. Evans, since the political parties are helping people to come in to register by educating them, don't you think you should take responsibility for this COVID-19 protocol thing? Because it appears most police centers we've gone to, people are not really social distancing. Should the political parties take a more frontal role in urging people to do that and educating them properly, because it seems as if we could have a big outbreak of COVID after the registration process? Evans, your sound is off. Kindly put it on. Yes.
Hello?
Yes, you are on. Go ahead.
Yes, my brother, I think that political parties must also help take the center stage to educate its members to fully appreciate the need for strict observance of the protocols under the COVID-19 management. Whether we like it or not, COVID has come to stay with us, and it's important that we keep safe and protect ourselves. The individual has the highest responsibility to ensure that our interaction is kept to a certain distance. That notwithstanding, we will go ahead and still prompt our members. It is also, as of now, a law that you must at all times wear your face masks and observe that social distance to not to go home with any kind of ailment. I, for instance, was so pleased that when we organized our primaries, we made sure that as a party, we provided for all our delegates face masks, alcohol-based sanitizers, and also provided Veronica bucket with warm water and liquid soap for people to wash their hands. Sometimes the euphoria, but I'll plead with the general population that all the 33,000 and over polling stations will be served by the Electoral Commission in terms of registering them. So there's no need to rush to the vote registration center when that is originally not where you are supposed to register. It will by all means get to your polling station. There's no need to travel over distance to get into an arena where people are overcrowded. That is not the way to go. So I'll plead, let all stakeholders come on board. Let's conscientize our members that it is important we keep safe and observe the protocols under the EI 64. Bernard, let me make this point. The first day of registration, as many as 212 people registered in the Georgia registration center.
But you are using only Georgia as an example. There are so many.
Yeah, because it is their stronghold. I'm saying that in that constituency for now, the EC is doing registration in 14 centers. When you go to Forikrom in Ashanti region, the EC is using 24 centers, 22 centers. And as of today, we've registered only 2,080 people. In the case of K2 North, they've registered as many as 3,161. I want Mr. Otukono to disabuse his mind of this whole entrenched position that the EC is scheming to send machines to the NDC stronghold. Whether we like it or not, the NDC has a stronghold. By the end of election 2020, they will have only 97 MPs in Parliament. You should keep that in mind.
Let me read a few comments before we take final reactions from Mr. Ahin and Otokono. Good evening, Bernard. Please tell Okono to stop the intellectual dishonesty. Every voter registration in this country has challenges. He is on national television. He should stop tarnishing his reputation. So, by Livingston from Kasua. Bernard, I went to registration center yesterday and didn't complete the process and had to go back today. In all cases, there was no social distancing, no temperature taking, and no washing of hands. Hands were only sanitized after going through the process and leaving the center. Authorities concerned should visit remote areas for proper checking. This is Samuel Akofo Jr. in Apam. Martin in Soviet said, Bernard, Pando municipality has not received the full complement of the registration machines. Instead of 16, only 8 machines have been deployed. Again, some police stations in phase 1 have been taken to the mop-up period. Is it acceptable? Salisu from Power OT region. Bernard, because NDC members have realized that it's too late for them to choose NJM as their flag bearer, they decided to distort the election process, which was orchestrated from day one. From day one, the EC person assumed office. Okay. Good evening. I'm pretty sure the EC have been overwhelmed by a higher level of spirit exercised by the populace. Okay. Let me take your final comment, Mr. Ahin. It's 2 days. It's early days yet. I'm giving you a minute to tell me what you are expecting in the next few days with the exercise.
The exercise to take off smoothly after these 2 days. Maybe I would say we're experimenting. Now we know the shortcomings of some of the machines. Maybe if you didn't know how to operate certain things, now you must be very, very conversant with whatever is going on. And then I will also say that as stakeholders, and by stakeholders here I mean the political parties, the EC itself, the police, the security people, and everybody who is involved in this kind of exercise, we should all cooperate to make sure that the COVID protocols are obeyed. Let us not be thinking that the EC, in the final analysis should be blamed. When everything is gone wrong, it's not only the EC that will be affected or infected. The staff of the EC will be infected. The policeman who is there might be infected. Those who have gone there, the registrants might be infected. So it should be incumbent on all who go there to register to make sure that these protocols are observed.
Okay.
It's in our own interest.
Thank you.
It's in our own interest.
Thank you, Mr. Ahin. Before I take Otokono, let me just say this. A lot is changing around us, but you have the power to be in control today. No matter who you are, Lydia has a contraceptive just for you. Choose the Lydia Daily Pill with iron as your regular contraceptive, or the Lydia IUD, a non-hormonal contraceptive for long-term pregnancy prevention. Call the contact center on 1221 or WhatsApp 661-660. You can visit us on social media at Lydia Contraceptives. With Lydia, you truly decide. The token, you have 10 seconds to just tell me your final comment.
Bernard, all this dreaded risk that we are putting ourselves in could have been avoided, but for the insistence of the government and the Electoral Commission to compile this new voter register. But what we are saying is that we are all collectively responsible for our own lives, and as a party, we are encouraging our people to even provide, support, PPE support at the various registration centers. But this overcrowding at the registration centers is all a factor of ill preparedness of the Electoral Commission.
Thank you very much, Peter Bomotokuno, Deputy General Secretary NDC. We had via Zoom Evans Nimaku, Director of Elections of the MPP, and Albert Ahin, National Coordinator of CODEO. Thank you, gentlemen, for being on the program, and listeners and viewers, thank you. We'll be with you next time. Bye-bye.
Point of View is powered by Airtel Tigo Extra. Even our bonus data doesn't expire. You the film? Dial *111# to activate now. Airtel Tigo. Life is simple.